5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, if you look all around the world, decades later, and dozens of dictators and authoritarian warlords remain in recluse and are hiding. They are fleeing from the sins of their past, and this looks like ISIS and Taliban officers in the Middle East to narco heads in Mexico and Latin America, or in Jaron and I's side of the world, people like Rodrigo Duterte, Sara Duterte, and the Marcoses, who have undeniable evidence against them of being able to do things like plundering millions of dollars, to a lot of extrajudicial killings and genocide of things back in the past during martial law, to the recent war on drugs we had in the past administration. This is a value judgment debate about what the ICC member states should do, as well as the extent of sovereignty and international law and jurisdiction. We recognize all those things are important, but we think ideas of sovereignty, for instance, and jurisdiction are actually a social construct, meaning the lines we draw on the land and the lines we draw on water are important for things like maritime trade and travel. But the point in which we're talking about genocide, ladies and gentlemen, and pillaging, when you actually plunder, have extreme graft and corruption that lead to the rise of things like crony capitalism and nepotism, we think those things take second priority. A couple of features of our model I'd like to discuss. It's not a policy debate, but it's important to mech things out. Number one, what do we mean by these member states should be required? We mean in every way, shape, and form, they have to be complicit in the process of planning the arresting, and making sure they're able to get to the ICC tribunal. This is likely going to be led by the ICC and a lot of geopolitical officers who form an international force all around the world. Second, what's the nuance to arresting? We think that arresting is the start of an investigative process in order to be able to arbitrate what's truly happening. Because absent this particular capacity to arrest, there is no investigation, and a lot of these things are lost in the sands of time. Go for it. Give your clarification, my G.
Yeah, how do you arrest them? Like, do you invade their countries and military operations? Like, what do you do?
In whatever way, shape, and form, but of course, this will be aligned with the Geneva Conventions. We think that in extents where we have to go into certain escalation and conflict, we're very much willing to do so, because absent that, there is no justice inside opposition. They remain silent, and the levers of apathy cry out for far too long, and a lot of this is lost in the sands of time. Three things you're going to get from my speech which prove our case from opening government. Number one, it is the interest of member states to infringe on the sovereignty of each other in order to be able to actually get justice and due process, not just for themselves, but for the aggrieved counterparty who might be directly complicit with that leader or completely arrogant or ignorant to that reality. We're able to shine a light and show them what these people have done, because a lot of these things are deeply rooted on things like culture, religion, and ethnicity, which are largely sensitive but need to be brought to the light. Secondly, sovereignty is good and important, but it's not an overriding principle or metric, similar to a social contract, ladies and gentlemen, wherein you have rights, but the point in which someone infringes on that coming from your state has to be able to be brought to the international community to be held. And thirdly, we are going to talk about how this arrest is a catalyst for due process domestically and internationally in order for the ICC as an institution and these other member states to exercise their own independence and agency to be able to arrive what's truly happening, to liberate them from a lot of these uncertainties. The first level of analysis is to understand that in these particular conflicts, it's often a conflict of attrition, wherein, let's say, country A is affected by a particular warlord, and country B is like, we want to be able to hold him accountable because he sold drugs, he raped and pillaged people within my society. And they're like, no man, because we have international borders, they're so important. So essentially, this attrition between these two parties, because they put such a privilege on these arbitrary lines we draw and international law, impede on the process, ladies and gentlemen. And we think that every politician and member of government who is not able to be complicit in the process is actually being an accessory, ladies and gentlemen. They're an accessory to this thing because even if they're not aware, they're impeding on the international community's capacity to be able to do that. We think that what we want to do is collective capacity for each other in order to serve as a check and balance, meaning country A, for instance, has a shitty guy and country B has someone affected and also maybe a shitty guy, then we're able to have them be a check and balance against each other in order to liberate them. I'll take a POI again to clarify more stuff. Whoever talks first, go for it. Round 2.
Yeah, very simple POI. Do you go forward and also intrude into countries which are not member states? Do you go forward and get Benjamin Netanyahu after the war which is already over?
We think that this debate is about the members of the ICC, but we're very much willing to defend that in order to be consistent with our principle, we're very much willing to try other people accountable and bring them to the light. Of course, countries are not going to be forced to do this. They have every capacity. The primary scope of this debate is within members of the ICC. That's particularly important because when you join the ICC, you enact this idea of international justice. That is to say, it's similar to self-defense, ladies and gentlemen, wherein you have a social contract, but the point in which someone's an asshole and he violates the rights, then the police and other people have every capacity to go into your house, look for the body, and drag that warlord out of there. We think that these states serve as a harmful habitat of people that seek them from the lens of justice, which for far too long has made it difficult. Why exactly is it better if you're able to go with our side to be able to unlock what's truly happening? It's because we don't know where the graves are. We don't know what they've done. And in order to truly be able to know and start the process, we need to be able to hold them accountable. In fact, the fact that we arrest them and bring them to the international tribunal is exactly the point in which we're able to even offer them a bone and be able to allow them to defend themselves and explain the due process and extent of what's happening. But in majority of instances, there's already so much evidence that is leading to the fact that this person was accountable. Which is why, in order to be complicit with the interest of these countries and in order to be aligned with the interest of the ICC, we really think it's important that sovereignty, yes, it's important. It's not an overriding value in the name of geopolitical self-defense for country A, for country B, and for the rest of the world. I am very proud to open this debate.
Thank you for the fights.